not the history of the Fayette campaign, but sort of my history of the Fayette campaign, as best I could tell it. When we were at Austin Energy the first of the week, or middle of last week, to make our voices heard about the new generation plan and about closing Fayette, I had a profound sense of deja vu.
Unmute on there.
You mean hit got it?
Yes.
I got it. Is that it? Okay.
And then,
Oh, unmute.
yeah.
Okay, and then we will go a little bit bigger, being, whoops. Hello.
How do you give your answer?
I lost my size of my picture. Okay. Let me just say this is my history of the coal campaign. And a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people in this room have been there the whole time. A lot of other people in countless other areas have marched and organized and done stuff. And they weren't necessarily in front of my camera, so they're not in tonight, but it's been a giant universal activity. Last week, how do I get this bigger again? Last week, when we were at Austin Energy, it was just like 2014. And when I get into the presentation, I'll show you how similar it was. I think Austin Energy just went back in their file, dusted off their Word documents, and ran the generation plan meeting all over again, right? They didn't think of anything new. There we go. So let's get going. Whoa, where'd the picture go? All right.
You're blocking our screen, President.
Where can I, let's see.
Maybe shifting this way.
Yeah, I gotta go your way. Hold on a second.
Yeah, we want to see it.
Will that get me? Huh?
I like Austin Energy, there's movement here.
Will this get us out of the way? How's that? Can you all see over there? I'll just go out. All right. This is the first time I ever went to a rally against the coal plants in Austin. This is 2007. And it was pretty active there. There's Dale and Pat, they were there. We had these really nice posters and we had some really nice t-shirts that were against the coal, but they were printed by Chesapeake Energy that was selling natural gas. But what I want to do here is to give you a perspective, to show you a 4-minute video that I made in 2014 that talks about the state of Fayette at that time, gives you a lot of information about Fayette, and it has the voices of all the city council members at that time and what their position was on closing the coal plant. This coal train is coming for Austin, headed for our coal plant in LaGrange. Over a mile long, I watched it disappear down the track, all out of sight of Austin, but really bound for Austin. Each car holds 80 tons, nearly 10,000 tons altogether. That's less than one day's coal for Fayette. Another will come tomorrow and another. Even on a Texas scale, Fayette is a massive polluter. It's 6th in greenhouse gases in Texas, 8th largest in producing ozone and smog. And even after spending $400 million, it's still 18th in Texas in acid rain. It spreads coal dust and asthma over the whole region, and airborne lead causes learning impairment. Mercury contaminated fish cover a wide area of Texas, and it also sucks up 5 billion gallons of Colorado River water every year for cooling.
Right now, Austin Energy is drafting a new generation plan,
2014.
detailing the sources of electricity for Austin in the coming years. This plan says what's in and what's out. Clearly, now is the time to write Fayette's coal plant out. Public hearings will be held early in the year. City Council will provide critical energy and climate policy for the plan. Here are the highlights from a recent City Council review meeting.
Good afternoon. I'm Austin Mayor Lee Leffingwell. A quorum is present.
Larry Weiss, General Manager of Austin Energy. But I think the more broad policy question that we have mentioned and would like answered is whether or not we want the CO2 to be completely gone or whether we want it just gone from our portfolio.
And I know that we passed a resolution that asked you to present us with some options.
Just quickly, I really would like to see both paths analyzed financially. I mean, you said you needed to know a path first before you give the numbers. I think we need to know the numbers on both paths.
The number one option for me is climate protection. So that means eliminating CO2, period. Not just from our portfolio, not just from our local area. It's climate protection. So that to me has always been a clear policy direction since 2007 when we adopted the climate protection plan.
But I just want to weigh in that at some point when, by the end of December, when we do get a list of options, I will not be favoring any option that involves our selling the plant to somebody who could actually ramp it back up again and produce more greenhouse gases.
Also, on the issue of Fayette, my main goal too is taking the pollutants out of the air. The only thing that I can really support is making sure that we get to a point where we can do that.
My preference, my strong preference would be to figure out how we can ramp down Fayette, the carbon emissions from Fayette completely, as opposed to just selling it off to someone else who would ramp it back up.
We do not need more evidence. We need to call the question. Make your voice heard right away. Join the Austin Beyond Coal campaign and speak out. Call, write, email, tweet. Any way you can reach Austin City Council and the many influential people in Austin City government and Austin Energy. Write letters to the editor. Contact newspaper, radio, and TV media and ask for more coverage. Participate actively in Austin Energy's public hearings this spring. Address the City Council. Please join us and keep current on our Facebook page, Austin Beyond Coal.
So that was about 10 years ago. City Council was totally with us, you know, I mean, you couldn't ask for more, and yet we're still working on the same damn issue. But let me go on. We'll go back in history a little bit. If my computer will go back in history. Yeah, here we go. In 2007, Al Gore scared the hell out of everybody. He made this movie about climate change, Inconvenient Truth, and put it right in front of us. We got to do something. Well, City Council decided they really ought to do something. This is a resolution from 2007, the first Austin Climate Plan. And among the many things it called for was 700 megawatts of energy savings through energy efficiency. Now remember, in 2007, there was barely enough wind power to run a football game. There was no solar power. We were like, how are we going to do this? But they said the big thing is energy efficiency. If we quit wasting energy, we won't need as much. So that was one. They said we'll need 30% of renewable energy by 2020, and we want 100 megawatts of that to be solar. In 2020, we had a gigawatt of solar. We want a CO2 cap on new plants and so forth. But at the same time that Austin Energy wrote this breakthrough resolution on climate change, Rick Perry, the governor, was trying to fast track 18 coal plants because they wanted to get under the wire of some new EPA regulations that were coming. And if they could get these approved and built quick, they would be grandfathered and they wouldn't have to meet any new standards. So Rick Perry was really pushing this. This was my first rally I ever went to. I said, what's going on in this town? This is amazing. Here's Kaiba in the middle here, I think, and Dr. Pressler from Physicians for Social Responsibility. Here's Bill Oliver singing protest songs. First time I met Bill Oliver. Here's Karen Haddon, Smitty, First time I ever heard Smitty, and not the last. We'll see these same characters throughout the movie. And also the clean energy goddess. But there were still coal trains running down Mopac. Now these coal trains in Mopac actually are going to San Antonio, because the ones that go to Fayette go out down through Giddings and they go a little bit east of here on BSNF Railroad. But this is what coal trains look like. They're 120 cars long. They weigh 80 tons apiece, and Fayette can burn 3 of those in a day. I mean, the scale of this is ginormous. So in 2011 and 12, Sierra Club got really geared up to work on the coal plant, and there was a $50 million grant for Michael Bloomberg to help it. So we hired some organizers, we bought a bunch of t-shirts, and we got going. We went down to Fayette and met a bunch of the pecan farmers. This is Harvey Hayek. And this is Flavia de la Fuente. She was the first organizer that I worked with on the coal campaign in 2011. Also, so here's Harvey and Jeff standing in front of the coal plant. Both of them have lost all their pecan orchards. Here's Harvey and his orchard. And Ryan Rittenhouse, he was a Greenpeace organizer in town. He was a heck of a firestorm, and he's still doing good work today up in Oregon. But this pecan tree shows, count the growth rings back, Harvey showed us, when you count these back, this is where the pollution started. These were healthy orchards that had been in their family for generations. They used to have prodigious amounts of pecans. And when the coal plant started in 79, that's when it started going bad for the pecans. Here's the orchard now. They don't even pick pecans out there anymore in Fayette. So we got organized, we got our t-shirts, we got our signs, we got going. And we started canvassing. This is Jeff Kronk. He was one of the lead volunteer organizers in the Beyond Coal campaign. Had a whole bunch of young people, a lot of t-shirts. Colin Clark, great organizer. He was our fearless leader. Chris Wilson. And we started organizing and getting petitions. And we took the petitions right to City Hall. Here we are handing a whole box of them to Cheryl Cole. Well, City Council they were trying to grapple with this too. What do we do? What can we do? And so they passed a resolution. Whoops. Dealing with coal, they wanted Austin Energy to look at scenarios on what they could do. Would they sell it to our LCRA? Because we only own 1/3 of the plant. LCRA owns the other 2/3. And my business advice is don't ever get into a business as a minority shareholder. You're it's not good. We do own half the property because there were supposed to be 4 plants there. And it was going to be even Steven. And then we backed out of the 4th one. So that's how it ended up. But anyway, their city council, well, do we sell it? We close it? What do we do? And Austin Energy's like, well, what do we do to make up the power? We buy gas. So I chartered a plane. I said, I want to go see this thing. What is it? How big is it? Well, it's huge, to say the least. This is the aerial view and the lake there. The lake that is built only to cool the coal plant uses as much water every year as the city of Leander. I mean, it's amazing. These coal piles are huge. There's the trains. I don't know if you can see them going through the middle of the picture. Those are train cars. Those 2 trains going side by side. One of them arcing way around the end there. Giant coal piles, just humongous. Powder River Basin in Wyoming. It all comes from there. So it's trained all the way down. So as we're starting to organize and relying on our city council and our boards and commissions to get traction to do something about Fayette, Senator Kirk Watson blindsided us in 2013 and wrote a bill in the Senate that put a finger right on Austin. It says a municipality less than 850,000 with a public utility more than 400,000 customers. Well, Austin is the only city in the universe of Texas that fit that. Could be allowed to get a private governing board instead of the city council managing the electric utility. And that's what San Antonio does, and that's why they're in trouble. When Julian Castro was in San Antonio, he made a big deal out of solar, tried to turn San Antonio into a solar city. And for a while, they had a really sympathetic board. But now they don't. They're back to business as usual and keeping their coal plants operating. But Kurt Watson tried to do that to us and take away our ability to influence our council to do things. And by the way, our council, who want to do things, rely on us to have their back too. So it's
About us, we eat about 6.
so fortunately, that died in committee, dodged a bullet. So we organized about that. We organized to defend city council having the right to manage Austin Energy. If you can imagine that. And a bunch of familiar characters, Ruby Roa, Susanna Almanza, Bridget Shea, Roy Whaley, whole bunch of people working on that just to protect our right to manage our own municipal utility. Then we started thinking we got to organize the EUC. We'll go to the EUC meetings, and here's a bunch of them. Michael Weber, well-known professor at UT on energy issues, was on it. Shooty Fath. They started talking about the generation plan in city council. Well, do we ramp it down? What do we do? And that's where we got to the point of that meeting that I showed you, where the council was overwhelmingly in support of shut it down. Do not sell it to somebody else who can run it. So we kept lobbying city council. We lobbied the committee of city council that decides about the plant. And then in 2014, Austin Energy came along and it was time for a new update to the generation plan. And they pushed back hard. They weren't terribly opposed to getting rid of Fayette because it was old, costly, and so forth. They didn't know how they could get rid of it, but they were less opposed to that. But they created a scenario that showed that if they closed Fayette and did nothing else, the rates would go up 25%. And they got that in the newspaper and everybody freaked out. Well, they didn't deal with, and then what do we do about the rest of the energy? They just said, if we do this, your rates will go up. So they scared everybody. What they really wanted, here's the plan for 2014, 200 megawatts of solar, build another gas plant at Sand Hill to match the one that's already there. And then they wanted an 800 megawatt gas plant to be built new at Decker. And so the environmentalists went freaked out. So we went to city council, and city council freaked out. And we organized, Mike Martinez had a big meeting at Sierra Club over in East Austin with Dave and Kaiba, and we tried to organize the neighborhoods, get as many people involved as possible, talk to city council about coal, carbon, and the risk of children's health. So when the generation plan of 2014 came along, this was Austin Energy put out a nice looking flyer about friendly environmental stuff and a resource plan about involves financial stakeholders, load, everything's all happy. And they had, if you look at the fine print, there's 3 meetings scheduled. About a couple hours each, 2 of them on Tuesday, February the 5th, and 1 of them 2 days later in the afternoon at February the 7th. That's the input that Austin Energy wanted. That's all they wanted. We protested, we marched right on Austin Energy, 2014. Look familiar? So they wanted to schmooze and talk to us with their, with their experts and managers, but they weren't going to go write that down, whatever we told them. They were going to remember that. That wasn't going to be part of their plan. They were just going to have a happy hour and then go off and do what they wanted. So we protested that. We got city council to say, no, we're going to have a real working group and you will make models and scenarios for these people. And we had a seriously good working group. Here's Harvey, the pecan farmer, came all the way to Austin to protest. Some more with Dave, we brought the band. We had the whole thing going. We started lobbying again at EUC, had big turnout at the Electric Utility Commission. A lot of volunteers. You can have 3 minutes to talk ahead of the meeting, and we made the most of it. But here's what they had done. They said, if you close Fayette and and make up the difference with market purchases, your rates will go up. So we were in a box there, but what they really wanted was this 500 megawatt gas plant. That was the main objective for Austin Energy. Kathy Tovo said, I don't think so. Chris Riley said, I don't think so either. Kaida said, we need solar power, of course. So we got them all involved. Had big rallies in front of City Hall. The council members participated too. And then it came to, at least in my history, my recollection, August 28, 2014 was one of the greatest nights in the history of Austin. We had two resolutions that we had proposed. One was sponsored, lead sponsor was Chris Riley, but just about everybody else on council was behind it. And it was to reduce CO2 emissions for all electric power for the city of Austin to 0 by 2030. Yeah. Now, a bunch of cities like Houston say, well, we're 100% renewable energy, but they're talking about this energy that's used by the city government for the fire department and the police department and their offices. They're not talking about all the energy in all of Houston. We're talking about all the energy in all of Austin by 2030. And the flip side of that, because we recognize we can't do something crazy and jack up the rates, we have to be really sensitive to our allies who are low-income people. And so Kathy Tovo led a resolution on affordability that said rate increases have to be less than 2% a year, and the rates for Austin Energy have to be in the lowest 50% of Texas. That's our measure. Anything we want to do that pushes us over that, find another way to do it. So these two together gave us the environmental thing we were looking for, and it gave us the justice thing we were looking for. And Kathy Tovo, a lot of this had to do with weatherization, stuff like that, low income air conditioners and all kinds of stuff. Kathy Tovo ran a series of meetings for a whole year on low income programs that many of which have been subsequently adopted. So these were the two things we were going for on August 28th. The meeting was held late at night. We had a whole bunch of people there. And Mayor Leffingwell, he didn't really want this to go through. And so he kept pushing it to the back of the agenda. The mayor had, he only has one vote, but he controls the agenda. So our issues kept getting pushed in the middle of the night and everything else got handled. By about 10 o'clock, he kind of winked at the Austin Energy guys and they knew that this was going to be put off till the next day. You environmentalists can come back tomorrow afternoon on a Friday. Now we had a bunch of working people there. They've already spent their whole night trying to be heard. Now they're going to come back on Friday. But the mayor kind of winked at Austin Energy. They went off to a bar. They started drinking, having a good time. And there they go. They're walking out. The mayor got kind of tired. He was an older guy. And so just before it was time to vote on Resolution 157 and 158, the mayor said, we're all going to have to come back tomorrow afternoon. I'm tired. The environmentalists stood strong, stood right up. This was the most amazing thing. They just stood there, glared. Mayor adjourned the meeting, went home. The rest of the council members didn't go home. They sat there and said, what just happened? So Mike Martinez looks over at Cheryl Cole and says, we still got a quorum. Can we reconvene the meeting? Cheryl's a lawyer. She said, yeah, I think so. Let's do it. So we reconvened the meeting after the mayor went home. We were excited. Here we are. We're all excited. Smitty gave the closing argument. If you've ever heard Smitty give a closing argument, it was beautiful. It carried the day. We were just excited. See, there's... And Susan Littman was so excited. Like, this was a famous thing she did. All right. So we gathered with our allies. There's Kathy Tovo and all the people wearing these yellow shirts. and Mike Martinez, who was kind of the lead instigator on this thing, along with Dave and Kaiba, and then Chris Riley. And then we went happily off to our own bar and had a good time for the rest of the evening.
After they voted, they voted on our motion.
Yeah, oh, after both motions carried unanimously by the people who were still there,
The Austin Energy people ran back.
they ran back. It was too late. Oh, well. So, but that was the night that the goal of zero carbon by 2030 got established in ink. Now, one thing Mike told us about later is a councilman, he said, now, we did all this, we've got it down on a piece of paper. That piece of paper doesn't make it happen, but that piece of paper gives you permission to keep making us do it. So that's kind of where we're still at. In the preparation for the generation plan that followed in 2014, one of the participants, Mike Sloan, came up with this thing that's called the Renewable Symphony. And I'll show you at the end of the presentation how that's playing out. But the theory is, with the sun, the green line peaking in the middle of the day, that gets your main afternoon load. When it's super hot and you need lots of power, you can get it with solar. The red line, the West Texas wind, kind of sags in the middle of the day just when you don't need it to sag, and it can sag really low. Coastal wind runs a little later in the afternoon. And then if you mix that all together, you can get the blue line on the top. So that's the ideal mix of renewable energy. Now, the bigger the footprint you've got, the better you have a chance of that happening. And I'll show you that later too. But the 2014 generation plan came along, and the best summary of it to explain it to people was in the Austin Chronicle. But it says renewables of 55% was our goal, that we wanted to add 450 megawatts of coastal wind, and then we wanted 600 megawatts of solar. Nobody had 600 megawatts of solar. It was crazy, but it was just the right thing. Show you that chart later too. And then down there, Austin Energy wanted 500 megawatts of a new gas plant. We didn't want that. So we got it phrased that they could have a study for 500 megawatts of a new gas plant. And as all studies take about a year, we finally got around to that. In the meantime, City Council said, well, we need to do more than this. We need the community climate plan, which commits us to zero carbon by 2050 of the whole city, not just electricity, transportation, manufacturing, everything by 2050. So that's an ambitious plan that ties into the energy is easier. If we control how we generate the electricity, we can have that part done by 2030. Some of those other things are a lot harder. So this was an ambitious plan. And here's Greg Kazar, who's now our congressman, going over it with Ora Houston. Roy Whaley and Michael Osborne, who was one of our really bright energy guys on the Electric Utility Commission, Kaiba, and here's a whole cast of characters again in line to speak. So what happened is we got 500 megawatts of solar passed when nobody thought we could do it. We're all happy about that. Whoops, that's not that. That's passing the generation plan. The next thing was Austin Energy was dragging their feet on the 600 megawatts of solar. Sorry, got ahead of myself. So there was another meeting called for that much later. Here's Hugh Meyer, who was also a big environmental leader here. Brilliant guy. He's now living in Colorado, but he did a lot as an inside guy to get a lot of things done. Dale, Richard, Karen, Jerry Locke. Haven't seen him, but he was a real leader too. Bob and Patty from St. Andrew's Church. I forget to mention how involved the churches were in this, and many still are. So they passed a resolution saying we want 600 megawatts of solar, and they passed it. Boom, there they are, holding their hands up. You can't probably see it from the back of the room, but they're all holding hands up. So what that did, solar was too expensive back in 2010 when we had really wished we could have 100 megawatts of it, but the price kept coming down, and the bids that Austin Energy got at this time for this solar was the lowest price in the world to date. Now, there have been some lower prices since then, but at that time, it set a new benchmark and it helped keep bending the curve of solar down. Solar, here's Youp and Kaiba, we're happy. Here's the whole bunch. Then it came time to review the plan for the gas plant with the big engineering study and the cute graphics and all that kind of stuff. The mayor wasn't having it. The mayor is like, over my dead body, you're gonna build a gas plant. Austin, huh?
That's a grenade, right?
That was a grenade. Well, this is actually Halloween and somebody passed out little pumpkins for everybody in the dais, but it looks like a grenade. It would have been a grenade. So they all huddled at Austin Energy and tried to figure out what to do. And here's everybody raising their hand to vote against the gas plant. So finally, the gas plant died. Come time for the 2017 generation plan update. I think Austin Energy pretty much went along with having a working group and they supported that, but they also fed us a lot of mysterious bullshit like this bubblegum chart that I still can't explain to you what it means. It means that most of the things are about the same, I guess, you know. But here's the working group in 2017. Here's Dale presenting to the working group, Cyrus there and a whole bunch of people. We also took to the streets. I mean, we had to take to the streets. This is another organization effort. Here's Bob and Susan Littman is over there on the stage. The birth of ATX EJ, which was ATX, Austin, EJ, Environmental Justice, where we started to put together environmentalism and justice for the people. And this was a big activity of Sierra Club and Bob and Susan were very instrumental in getting that going at the time. There's also a new group called 350 Austin. 350, founded by Bill McKibben a decade ago, was a big international organization, but we didn't have a branch in Austin. So Bobby and Gil took this on and we had our kickoff meeting with Bill McKibben on video, Jim Hightower and Leslie Poole. Very active organization. And of course, Victoria and Bob and Leslie and Jim Hightower and a whole bunch of people. And of course, with that, we all took to the streets again because that's what we had to do. But this was the Trump years. We had to march in support of science. You haven't had to march in support of science since the Spanish Inquisition. It was just, but there we are. So we're trying to support science. Thank God. Oh, and also dirty coal. So many rallies. I must have 100,000 pictures of rallies, but also Citizens Climate Lobby. Here's Susan Adams and Anna Graybill, who started or who brought to Austin the Citizens, started the Austin effort in Citizens Climate Lobby, which is a plan to have a carbon fee or a cost on any emissions of carbon, then the return the dividend back to the people. And it's a great plan. It's great idea. Whether we can ever pass it or not, I don't know. I hope so, because then it would penalize. It wouldn't penalize. I take that back. It would
Incentivize.
It wouldn't even incentivize. It would capture the, what do they call it? The market. Forgot the word.
One of the market.
Huh? Corner of the market. No.
Externality.
There's a externalities. Thank you. That's it. You get the Groucho Marx prize. The externalities are these terrible costs that just don't happen to be captured economically. So you ignore them and you keep doing what you're doing. Well, they've been, this would kind of put a price on those externalities. So they're having a meeting Saturday. They're very active. And they do a lot of tabling. Their main thing is to lobby congressmen because their goal was to get this legislation passed nationally. So they lobby Congress a lot. They started to lobby Texas, that's great. And Bill Oliver, he's got some more great songs because whatever's going on, it's got to be sung about. We're still worrying about, science and stuff like that and solar panels for Dale. Daniel Yantis from East Austin brought some perspective on the indigenous viewpoint on this, how to live more in harmony with the earth. The mayor talked about the Austin being a leading city and to be able to lead the way in this innovation and transition. Lloyd Doggett, it's Lloyd Doggett again, and then a whole bunch of people. We're still just out there working, and Bill's still singing. We're marching some more. I mean, there was a march a week. There was always something to be mad about or trying to change in a positive way. Let me put it that way. 350 kind of regrouped and said, you know, we really need to learn more to be nonviolent, but we need to be a lot more aggressive. We just need to be nonviolent. So they did some seminars on that and tried to figure out how to do more nonviolent, but more direct action. And they're a pretty great outfit. Along that time, and I forget what year we're in, 2018. Yeah, let me get to you afterwards. What? Well, they were a great group.
Yeah.
So then we moved on. We had a community solar program. We got a big community solar project done as a demonstration. This is in 2018, and it's pretty much right in Pete Rivera's backyard. And so he spoke there. And the thing about this is a community solar program. It's got about 2 megawatts of power. It's got a battery that was paid for by the Department of Energy. It was a great demonstration project. And it was 5 years ago. There should be 200 of these out in Austin by now. That's the problem. It's not that this is a bad idea. This was Austin Energy's idea. It's a great idea. There should be lots of them. So coming to the generation plan in 2017, we got a commitment. We reaffirmed the 2014 goal to close Fayette Power Plant by the end of 22. We also were going to close the Decker steam units 1 and 2 by 2020 and 21. Those actually did get closed a year late in each case, but they are done. But Fayette soldiers on. So when this generation plan got adopted by City Council, the City Council had a food fight because they thought it wasn't ambitious enough. They thought we had really been duped. They thought they wanted it to be a lot more ambitious. And so Leslie Poole put up 11 amendments to it, mostly calling for studies on how it could be more ambitious. Kathy Tovo said the City Council affirms its interest in climate protection and in reducing emissions as soon as possible. Ann Kitchen put up a bunch of resolutions about electric vehicles, and Delia Garza about weatherization and low-income programs. So they passed the generation plan, but they demanded that Austin Energy get a lot more serious, a lot more ambitious. And so they raised their hands and there's that. They also, these are the Trump years, they passed a carbon fee and dividend resolution telling the Texas congressman to get behind it. And so we did a lot of work there on that front. Also did a lot more. Here's the Earth Day where we're tabling and having booths at Houston Tillotson. Catherine Ajejo, who's just a genius and great speaker, who's the climate scientist in Lubbock at Texas Tech, has done a lot of consulting work with the city of Austin and gave a lot of speeches. We kept lobbying for Electric Utility Commission. Let me go back to that because the Electric Utility Commission is almost universally people who wanted more ambitious climate goals. I mean, occasionally there's someone who's not, but it's pretty much on our side. And they need us behind them because they want to do these things. They want to be able to show that they have some public support behind them. So it works both ways. And here's Bob at Sierra Club giving a speech on all we need to get back to a healthy climate. I think, and then this was 2018, we got very involved in the political scene. Mike Siegel was running for Congress. He aligned with a lot of our goals. Craig Naser had a fundraiser for him. And Bill Oliver sang some more songs. But Fayette kept burning. Gil from 350 gave a presentation right here on the climate issues and talked about closing Fayette. It was just one of many, many things across churches and mosques and synagogues all across Austin. We finally thought we had some leverage on LCRA. It was a sunset resolution in the legislature, and there was a chance to at least have some recommendations from the legislature about their overuse of water, about the coal plant and all. But Kirk Watson had their back. We didn't lay a glove on LCRA during that whole thing. Kurt Watson was there, and not much got done. So Bob and Sierra Club soldiered on, and then we're starting to get into 2019, passed a resolution on the climate emergency, because it's the Trump years, and it was a climate emergency, it still is. Keep working the 2020 generation plan. Sunrise came along. All of a sudden we had like zillions of young students, kids, people from the college with sunshine and a lot of new energy. We went and protested right in front of Austin Energy. Caiba chalk marked their sidewalk while we were working on the generation plan. The plan there, important things about it, said we're going to do this, but if things change, we'll have an update to this plan in 5 years. Am I running till midnight here? Yeah, sorry. I'm almost there. The Austin Energy didn't want to do an update quickly. They said every 5 years, but if things change significantly, and there's a lot of things to talk about, then we will do it in 2022. And so we had to get city council to make them do that. So there's a resolution from last year with city council saying the EUC sees that there are many, many new things, and we do need to talk about this. So we'll have a new generation plan update. And what did they do? They got out their old PowerPoints, they dusted them off, and they had 2 meetings on the 29th and 1 on the 30th. So we had to go march on Austin Energy's new building and try to be heard. Here's something I do want to show you in detail. Whoops. Because I think we've accomplished a lot. We haven't closed Fayette. We've done everything I know how to do about Fayette, except a couple things. But this is our power source today. All those yellow dots are massive solar farms, mostly in West Texas. The green dots are wind distributed all over the state. This black dot here is still Fayette, and there's 2 gas plants closed in Austin and no more to take their place. So despite the fact that Fayette is still running, we've got a remarkable accomplishment there, and we've got a whole lot of people in the city council to be thankful for. And a lot of people in Austin Energy, I mean, some bunch of people in Austin Energy are good. They just need a dose of ambition. So the working group has a lot of issues to address. We need our engagement as much as possible. This takes us back to that symphony. And this is the ERCOT power generation from September 6th, just a couple of days ago. The middle purple band is gas. The bottom is coal. The blue coming and going is wind. And the orange is solar. That didn't exist a couple of years ago. It exists now. And when that gets to be 3 times as big, nobody's going to need the coal anymore. And that's going to be 3 times as big by 2025. Let me show you. This is also, we need batteries. We talked about batteries in 2020 in the generation plan. We couldn't afford batteries. Everybody, yeah, that's batteries, great. Yeah, have a good time. Here's the batteries that are being built right now in ERCOT. Right now we have 3,500 megawatts. By the end of this year, we will have nearly 6,000 megawatts. By the end of next year, we'll have 13,800 megawatts. Batteries are coming big. And this is what the queue looks like in ERCOT. These are projects that being planned. They won't all happen, but these are being seriously planned. And solar has 131 gigawatts in planning. Batteries have 109 gigawatts in planning, with the peak years being 2025. So when those happen, that symphony can really play, because that orange for the solar is going to be big. the battery's gonna catch the places where we have gaps and, we can really rock along. To close the coal plant, Austin Energy is not in the driver's seat. LCRA is, but we need to pressure Austin Energy to keep them working on it. But we need to pressure Watson. He's the one I really don't know about. I don't know him. I don't know what he thinks about Fayette, but the things he's done to us in the past scare me. And the real decision lies with the LCRA board. And the LCRA board is appointed by the governor. And so it's the LCRA board and the governor that are going to make all the difference, except for the market. And I'm not a free marketer so much, but energy sells in Texas whatever is cheapest, and solar and wind are cheapest. And so they're going to drive coal out. And I think that's when we finally get there, and that's not very far off. So thank you very much.